you filmed yourself getting laid off at Discord. How did you even know to film yourself?
I've been vlogging about my daily life for 3 years. I think publicly people thought, did you do this on purpose? What's your mission? I'm just like, nah, dude, I'm a vlogger. It's not that deep. Like, I just vlog every day.
It must have gotten at least 100 million on X.
It was so bad because it was retweeted to like the Elon Musk fanboy, like pits of hell. And people hated me on it.
Chloe's story captured the internet's attention. But how do you rise above the chaos?
I worked ultra hard behind the scenes, like not sleeping. I was making video after video. This is a sign I need to make sure that I do my utmost best to make this path work, whatever it may be, and not like waste this opportunity if I have like time away. And that is such a blessing.
I think that we have the biggest product management influencer on YouTube and Instagram with us today. In this podcast, I've brought you all sorts of people. We have the graybeards. We have the people who have seen big tech. We have the startup people. Today, we have somebody who's seen a little bit of it all, Chloe Shi. Chloe, thanks for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I've been following your stuff for so long. And we've talked through DMs. This is our first time meeting in person. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, your video skills, I think, shone through in the moment that most of my audience, I think, would have seen you, which was you filmed yourself getting laid off at Discord.
Yeah, that was a time.
Let's start, rewind. How did you even know to film yourself?
I've been vlogging about my daily life for 3 years prior. So I started on YouTube, and I think I just recorded everything. Yeah. So to me, I think publicly people thought, oh, I had so much media in my inbox saying, oh my God, did you do this on purpose? What was your message? What's your mission? Like, are you enraged? And I'm just like, nah, dude, I'm a vlogger. It's not that deep. Like, I just vlog every day. Yeah.
So the social network that I spend the most time is X, and your TikTok, I don't know if you know how many impressions it got. It must have gotten at least 100 million on X.
It was so bad because it was retweeted to like the Elon Musk fanboy, like pits of hell. And people hated me on it. Like people gave me so much hate that I couldn't even, it was like so dumb. It was like, oh, she doesn't have books in her room. She must be dumb. Or like, oh, look at this millennial. She bought a house, but she can't afford furniture. Like she has no taste. And I'm like, what? I'm so confused. Like what? This is crazy. But thankfully, that's all I saw. And then I just didn't log back in.
Okay. So you ignored the dialogue. This is what I saw. So I saw a lot of, I can remember some of the tweets because I followed and unfollowed people based on how they were commenting on your video. So I think the main thing I heard, though, was this is the time. Like everybody's getting laid off. And so what I saw was wow, look at this person. She's worked at Meta. She's worked at Google. She's getting laid off. That was the message I saw.
Yeah, I think what was crazy was that was a week that the Cloudflare person got laid off. And then it was her video. And I never saw her video. And then my video back to back. So everyone lumped us together. And we were on news articles in the same article. And I'm just like, hers was a message. Mine was just a reaction, like a very neutral reaction. So I think press was very scary during that time. Yeah, but it went omega viral. I was also, oh my God, on the news in Singapore and Asia 1 and in Taiwan. Like my aunts would record their TV and be like, you're on every other hour. And you know how Asian news is different? It would say something like, beautiful manager gets laid off from Discord, just bought a house. It's so embarrassing, but it is what it is. I don't know. When is a win? We'll see.
Yeah, it was a huge win. I'm, as you said, media, but I'm also just looking at your follower counts blowing up on every single platform.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And I feel like that's the best timing because you did just get laid off. It feels like it influenced your future life decisions. This episode is brought to you by Explo, a game changer for customer-facing analytics and data reporting. Are your users craving more dashboards, reports, and analytics within your product? Are you tired of trying to build it yourself? As a product leader, you probably have these requests on your roadmap, but the struggle to prioritize them is real. Building analytics from scratch can be a time-consuming, expensive, and challenging process. enter Explo. Explo is a fully white label embedded analytics solution designed entirely with your user in mind. Getting started is easy. Expo connects to any relational database or warehouse, and with its low-code functionality, you can build and style dashboards in minutes. Once you're ready, simply embed the dashboard or report into your application with a tiny code snippet. The best part, your end user can use Expo's AI features for their own report and dashboard generation, eliminating customer data requests for your support team. Build and embed a fully white labeled analytics experience in days. Try it free at explo.co/Aakash. That's explo.co/AAKASH. This episode is brought to you by Adio, the next generation CRM. Imagine a world where your CRM is powerful, easily configured, and actually intuitive. Adio makes that a reality. As I've profiled in the Product Growth newsletter, setting up Adio takes less than a minute, and within seconds of syncing your email and calendar, you'll see your relationships in one place, enriched with valuable data, including things like relationship strength. Adio lets you build Zapier-style automations, create powerful reports, and works for any go-to-market motion, from PLG to sales-led. Adio is designed for the next era of companies like yours. And companies like yours shouldn't have to deal with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRMs. Join industry leaders like 11 Labs, Replicate, and Modal. Head to adio.com/productgrowth and you'll get 15% off your first year. That's attio.com/productgrowth.
I was like always curious to do my own thing for a while, but I was like, as you may know, it's very scary to leave that stability. And I finally got in a place where I was so excited. And like Discord was amazing. Having gone into product management and knowing that the role of the product manager in tech is like such a great career path. And I would never have made that decision by myself if it weren't made for me. So when that happened, I was like, okay, this is a sign. I need to make sure that I do my utmost best to make this path work, whatever it may be, and not like waste this opportunity if I have like time away. And that is such a blessing. Yeah. So I worked ultra hard. Like, oof. I was working behind the scenes, like not sleeping. I was making video after video. And then also when you get laid off, there's a lot of logistics and HR work and benefits and like what do you do with all of this? So that took a lot of stuff. And then there's like legal issues because, things blew up and I had people cover me in ways that were not okay. So I had to like put those fires out. Yeah, I learned a lot about the law at that time. Yeah.
So you really became, as I see it, like one of the two faces of kind of this horrible period for product managers, where product managers were getting laid off left and right. I don't know if you've seen the stats, but product management had been only growing since 2001. And then in this little period between 2021 and 2023, the field contracted for the first time. And I feel like you are really the face of that. What is it like for you? How do you feel about these layoffs, and were they conducted well? Was it just an outcome of ZERP? What is your take on all this?
I think some people did not go through a good experience and they've shared that publicly. I commented on this on my YouTube, but I think Discord did a decent job. Yeah. And I think it's a tough thing to do to let people go. And I agreed with their direction, to be honest. And I felt like, the pandemic grew Discord in a way where there was so much amazing growth. Like it's great. But then to sustain it afterwards and like branch out to what it wasn't before. I think I joined at a time where there was a lot of experimentation and I wasn't really sure if it was going to work out from the bets we took, but I was interested in seeing what would come out of it, like the creators and the communities. And now they're back to their roots in gaming, and that makes a lot of sense. And if I were them, I would make that same call. So I really respected the hard decision to like look at yourself, look at your honest truth and be like, actually, we can't do what we thought we could do. And we need to change our mind. And then we need to tell everyone. That's hard. That's really hard. So I think the way it was handled, there's like some parts that are like, oh, it feels horrible. But I feel like, I don't know if I'm jaded, but I just think that that's not an easy thing to do. Nobody can do it well. And given what they were given, I think they did the best they could. Yeah.
Reflecting on the field, what I noticed is that it probably did get a little bloated, like tech and product management as a whole. And it feels like they overhired. I was at Epic Games. We blew up from something like $10 million in profit to like $5 billion
Yeah, that's
in yearly
crazy.
profit. And so the company like 5x or something like that. And it was like, we weren't even developing that much more, doing that much more, but all of a sudden the headcount just explodes. And it feels like I actually got an offer from Discord like around a little bit before you were laid off.
We talked. I remember you
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like was interviewing for like a group PM role over there. I
Do you remember
remember.
what team?
I don't.
Darn.
But I think it was like it would have been because of me, that would have been consumer experimentation related. So it might
Oh,
have been
interesting.
similar area to where you were. I think I was working on like Nitro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
And so I remember interviewing there and feeling like, wow, they have a lot of PMs. What was it like in the inside?
I actually don't think they had a lot of PMs because I think when I joined, it was less than 10 or something like that. And then when I left, it was like 25
Okay.
for the surface areas that they owned. Like, I think we owned so much product spaces, and there's so many other product surfaces that were not owned too. And I was like, wow, I don't know how you guys did all of that by yourselves. It was like 6 p.m. for the longest times ever. And I'm like, how did you guys do all of this? So I felt it wasn't that much given the bets that
That's
the
not
team.
much. I mean,
Yeah.
their engineering team's pretty huge. So 25
Yeah.
PMs, that's actually very lean.
Yeah, I think I joined when it was like a couple hundred people, probably 300 maybe. And then it
Mhm.
shot up to 1,000.
So it did 3x though over
Something like
time.
that.
Yeah, it feels like there was just like this bloating that happened in companies, and product managers somehow experienced some of the collateral damage. So what was it like as a PM there? Were you guys getting a lot of wins? Like, how was the life there?
I think I was pretty protected from the overall company because I don't know, I came from TikTok right before, and before that was at Facebook Meta, and then before that was Caffeine, a startup, and then before that was Google. And for the entirety of my career, I poured everything into it. And then when I went to Discord, that was like the first time I was like, I'm gonna have some separation because I never had anything else for myself. Yeah. So I was like, I'm only gonna care about my team and my manager and my department, and that's it. Like all the other stuff, like I'm not gonna do the politics. I'm not gonna go and visit the office all the time and talk to execs and leadership. So I had a great time. Like my manager, his name is Rick Ling, and he was the director of product for communities. And I loved him. And I forget what the company was called. He started this company and it was acquired by Discord. And then he joined Discord as a product manager early on, very, very early on. Um, and then now he has left and he's starting his own gaming company. That's really exciting. But he was awesome. I felt like he was a very intuitive leader. And because he was there in the early startup days, the culture of him and like a lot of the OGs, there's a lot of like OG culture who've been around since the beginning. They have really strong intuition on why they think something's going to work. Whereas like I think new PMs from bigger tech need the research and the data to show, and they do more micro optimizations and they need to validate and run experiments. Whereas like the more OG people who've stayed around, they're like, we don't need to run that test. Like we already know it's going to work because here are the very lo-fi signals. And so I found that very different from TikTok Meta because they're much bigger and you have to like almost write the most full ass report. Wait, do you curse on this? Oh my God. Okay. You have to write so much to prove what your bet is right. Yeah. So, I mean, working at startup before, it was all like gut based. And then I left that and I came back to more of, you have to have strong conviction in something and you don't always need to prove it. Like if you can explain it from human to human, then we'll believe. So I really had to flex I don't need data to back me up, but I need to outline the rationale and pitch it to you as a human. Yeah. So I think that was interesting. It's like a different level of like influence or whatever. Yeah.
Sounds like the most misused term in product, but product sense
Yeah.
focused
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah, and I think that I don't think people had. I feel like that it gets a bad rap because there's a lot of like big egos in product and tech and leadership, and everyone thinks they're right or whatever. But I really think the people who were in product leadership there cared about their users and really understood, and they were the users. And so, um, I think they came at every proposal with like a, do I really think it's gonna work? Like, does it make sense in my head? And they do that checkpoint. And I don't think every leader does that checkpoint. If they see the numbers work, the numbers work, you know? But I think that value check, that sense is very rare to find. Yeah, so I liked it.
So operating lean, what was the actual product culture like? What were the big rituals? Did they have a lengthy planning process? Did they have a lengthy PRD process?
Yeah, it was hella scrappy. And I was like too much. Like if I made a deck, I remember in the first year, people were like, oh my God, you have a deck? Like why? So it was like only document if you really think that helps you. But then the culture changed as we scaled and we had more regular product reviews and then leadership changed out. We hired a new VP of product or SVP of product and we had top 10 weeklies where every product pillar had to share their biggest priorities of that week. That would get funneled up. You have team pod meetings, you lead your own product team, you do your own kickoffs. Yeah, there was more of a review process. We had, we called it a clock building squad, CBS, and that's where the execs would check in with your, I guess, like pillar every, I don't know, 6 weeks or more. And then you have to basically give a screenshot of where things are.
Built a lot of rituals
They
over
did.
time.
They did. And we had monthly PM syncs where a PM lead, usually someone who is more senior, would talk about something that's happening in industry or break down a product launch and why things failed in the past. And I loved those sessions. They were so fun. Yeah. It's just like, those data review meetings or tech review meetings. It's more like brown bag style. And I found it super interesting because everyone who's asking a question is a product manager. You just like ask the right questions and people have really good answers and I really liked it. Yeah.
Okay, so that seems like kind of what I'd call the mid stage of
Yeah.
product lifecycle, where you're
Yeah.
building in lots and lots of rituals, but probably they're changing pretty quickly as they
Oh
try
yeah.
on new clothes every other 2 months. And
Yeah.
what about the org itself? Was it pretty, did they reorg a lot, or was it people were focused on the same stuff the whole time?
I was in communities for about a year and a half and I think it was running for 2 years. Yeah, because there's a big bet on community servers versus like private servers. And I think Among Us was like a big thing that swooped up Discord's numbers. And I think there was a strong like investment there because it was just me leading community engagement and then the trust and safety or like the community management, community moderator team. And that was about it. And then we included two more PMs for like admin stuff. And then another person, I think, I forgot what the title was or what the team name was. It was like more about the feed, having a feed for a server. But yeah, I think we spent that year trying to invest in the right fundamentals and pillars of the product for what does it mean to properly and sustainably build communities on Discord. Like what do they need? How do they keep it going? How do they keep the engagement up? How do they sustain it? But I think with everything that's a big swing, it takes a long time to see results. And if it's a 0 to 1 product, we did a lot of 0 to 1 things. Like I built forum channels as that's my second project, and that took like I don't know 9 months to release. And we released like the first version of it within a month, and then we had to test and iterate and add more features to build it up and make it more mature over time. Yeah, and that was like a really hard thing to change behavior around. It's like a fundamental change in your community to create a new communication line or like take an old one and then revamp it with no like migration flow. It was it was a hard product, but I think it turned out really good. At the beginning it was like a failure, and then it took like 6 months for it to ramp up and really cross big thresholds and goals that we had.
So to get something that you invest 9 months in, what was kind of the approval process? You mentioned like there were these two ends of the spectrum, people just writing notes on a slab versus you even thought about doing a deck. How did you approach getting the buy-in for that?
We got better over time. We really did. My manager, because he was like very OG, his superpower was knowing where all the decision makers were and how they operated. So he would handle the buy-in at the exec levels. So that was great. I was very protected. And as long as he and I were connected and like on the same page, then we were great. Yeah, and then the rest of my team were also super aligned with the things that I called out, and I had a really strong designer. So when we made design choices, it came from a very principled place. Yeah. Was definitely someone who was way stronger at documentation than like most of the PMs that were there. So I think that helped a lot with all of the different team members getting confused at such an intense timeline. That was really helpful. But yeah, very quickly, I think we needed that structure because people would forget the decisions you made 2 months ago, and then people get upset or whatever. But yeah, I had a change log, a decision, and have meeting notes for every single meeting. I had a calendar. We called out all of our deadlines, and we were very, very particular about why something would go out and why something would not. Yeah. We also had community. You know how Slack is like sometimes you know which announcement channels you have to write to make sure these stakeholders are aware of the changes you're doing. I always had that very clear and laid out. So I had to make sure everyone else knew what we were doing. But I didn't have to really struggle with is this the right bet?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Those are two levels, I feel.
That was my life for the last 10 years. Executive buy-in.
Yeah, that's a really hard art.
Yeah.
It's like you almost need to know their personality at like a more fundamental level and know like what words get them ticking and what words are trigger words for them. Yeah.
Yeah, literally just speaking their language about whatever priorities the SLT is currently focused on, I feel like.
It's
And reframing.
exhausting. It truly is.
So that was the mid-size. Was TikTok more of an enterprise product culture? What was TikTok's product culture?
I would say it was, but at the same time, TikTok/ByteDance was the most unique culture I've ever witnessed. I reported at Beijing, so all my managers were Beijing-based product people. I don't think they had product management experience before. So it really was, it's very new. Like PM is very new, right? Wouldn't you say it's quite new in like non-Silicon Valley areas? Yeah. So they were mostly like experts in their space and then became product managers. We would have, we had like 4 PMs based in the Bay only, like that I knew of. So it was just us 4 at that time when the first year I joined. And I think there were some people based in LA, which were interesting, but we were the trust and safety PMs. And trust and safety was like a humongous team at TikTok. Like we had so much power. We can block anyone. Yeah, you know how sometimes it's like hard for trust and safety to make decisions, but because TikTok has so scrutinized, they've heavily invested in it. And we were so strict on making sure the products that were being released complied with everything that we checked. The product culture was I would meet with my product team, which is my product area, which like none of the other 3 PMs were in. So we were all in different product areas. My area was, I think, comments, TikTok Live, and like this, I don't know, a bunch of other stuff. And it was like 15 other PMs in China. So I would meet on Monday nights, and we would submit our PRDs for them to review. It's very Amazon style, sit down, read it, comment, and then discuss every comment. And there's translators on every call. So you know how on Zoom, there's a button that says interpreter, and you click on it, and then you can click English or Chinese. And so they will hear a Chinese version of me, and I hear an English version of them. And there's a live interpreter interpreting in real time. So you listen to them. And so it's always like a few seconds of a delay. Yeah, it was crazy. So that was the team product review. Then you went to, I think, TNS review. So the entire trust and safety department, so all of the, I think like 9 teams within trust and safety. And every team has like, I don't know, 10 to 20 product managers would come and review. And then the TNS head of product would lead it and like destroy our PRD, like destroy it. And then you go to comprehensive review, which is on Wednesdays. And then that's when like the product people would go through in your entire PRD. And then you go to technical review, which is the RD side. And that's like less work for PMs because it's more about the technical feasibility and how staffing will work. I didn't have a designated engineering team. So they would just staff engineers based on your requirements. They'd be like, all right, this is 3 engineers. We're going to take this and this. These are your people for your cycle. Go. Yeah. So I worked with different people every single feature release. It was crazy. So every night it'd be meetings from like 7 to 10, 8 to 11, because they're China time hours, right? They only start at 10 a.m. in meetings. Yeah. And then engineers, like, if you wanted to meet with them, it would be their time after their early review meeting. So their time, maybe 11 or 12 p.m. Shanghai or Beijing time. I don't know if the same time zone. They probably is. Yeah. And it'd be really late for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I just recently talked to a director of product at TikTok, and he said there is no such thing as work-life balance at TikTok.
Yeah. But I think if you worked in like the European offices, I do think you did log off. And so because of that, I had to wake up at 7 a.m. for the UK meetings or Dublin. And I'm just like, man, this is so tiring. Yeah.
Wow, travails of working for a company where the decision-making, the central execs are somewhere else.
Yeah, it's tiring. But I learned a lot. And honestly, they are the fastest engineering groups I've ever witnessed in my life. No fear. They're so efficient, low-key a little mean, but almost like direct to a point. And you've probably seen this culture too, where you're just so direct, but they get stuff done. They're not like trying to negotiate with you and be like, that ticket's gonna take like 2 weeks. When do you need it done? And I'm like, they're like, okay, we can do this. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, I can do it right now. And I'm like, you guys are machines. Like, you're so talented. One of my favorite parts working at TikTok was their hackathons. They were crazy. They were so absurd because, like, I don't know what it is about Chinese culture. Part of it is very professional and very hierarchical and really like rigid. But another part is extremely out of pocket. Like if we were watching an all hands, people would be like, oh my God, he's so handsome in the comments. Like, what a handsome man.
What?
And we're like, oh, we love him. He's our God. It's like very fan based. And have you seen those like live stream apps where the comments float across the screen?
Never. I've only seen Twitch.
Okay, well, in a very Chinese streaming setup, when you enter a comment, it will float across the screen, and just that's it. There's a bunch of comments. So that's what some of our all hands were. So it'd be like a professional all hands, and it'd float, and it'd be like, oh my God, he's so hot. So that was hilarious. So then the hackathon, some of them would, I forget, but it was something along the lines of, oh, you don't have to find a partner. Here is an AR effect where you can find your perfect partner right here. And it's like an anime person. I'm like, damn. There are a lot of dating ideas. They're really funny. Some of them were straight troll, like type products. I'm like, dude, these guys got jokes, man. It's so good. It's so innovative and funny and like unhinged.
So a real hackathon where the engineers are just coming up with the ideas themselves and
Yeah,
pairing with the
anyone.
designer and building it. Like
Yeah.
hackathons I ran recently at Apollo, for instance, like the product leaders vet all the ideas
Oh my God.
before, and then we go build them. And
Oh, that's so rigid.
yeah, I guess Apollo can blame me because I was the product leader involved in this. But yeah,
Dang.
totally
Yeah.
different. This is like a true like college style hackathon.
Yeah, it's very free will.
Very
There's
cool.
a lot of free will there, but I loved it. It was just crazy. And I think their VR, AR teams were insane. Visual effects teams were insane. And some so talented. I just don't know how they create such effects so fast and they churn it out. It's like, okay, here's the next set of 20 effects we're going to add in. Da 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 da. And I'm like, whoa. And it's themed and it's branded. And I'm like, they get it. Yeah.
Yeah, when I talk to people about AI, a lot of people always want to learn about AI. I always tell them, like, probably your first wow moment with AI after Google search was probably the TikTok algorithm. Like, it's just so freaking good. It's actually insane.
Yeah, you have to train it. It's such a different relationship. Yeah, with like content. And some people actually had different accounts to focus on different topics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It operates very differently even today, I feel, than like the Reels algorithm or something like that.
Yeah.
Where like TikTok, it feels like once you give it some signal you like some sort of content, it just feeds you down all of that content. Instagram, I feel like,
Yes.
is like way more focused on the social graph.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's very different. Like you hang out with your friends on Instagram, but you don't on TikTok at all.
Yeah. And so was the TikTok algorithm product org, was that in America? Where was that all
Ooh, I
sourced
have
and
no
done?
idea. We
Okay.
did not hand. Oh, I'm not really sure. That was a black box. I'm not sure.
Very
We
interesting.
had some parts of it, mostly because trust and safety is like more of a protection
Mm-hmm.
mechanism. Because I worked on combating QAnon conspiracy theories at the beginning and then misinformation during the US elections. And then I did more data privacy work. That was the beginning of my stint. And we got a lot of say in how we would help like not surface
Yeah,
bad
certain content.
content. So that was cool. But yeah, I don't really have an insight to like the algorithm. And I
Yeah.
know that no one really understands it. We saw like a diagram of just the trust and safety one and nobody can explain it. It's like a humongous, disgusting like tree decision. Everything is so much flow, so many crossing lines, so many boxes. We're like, what's this? What's this? What's this algorithm?
Oh,
What's this model? What's this model? Oh, this detects smoke. This detects skin. This detects driving. This detects alcohol. This detects age. It's like so many things that go in, and we're just like, yeah, I can't. My monkey brain cannot comprehend all of that.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because like the Twitter files were released on the Twitter algorithm and it's not that complex, you know? Like you can just draw it out on a whiteboard. There's only like 20 main services involved.
I did not know that.
So it
That's
sounds like
cool.
TikTok has like thousands though, if it has smoke and different detection algorithms and things
Yeah.
like that.
That is from what I remember, which I think is really cool that they can detect such things and keep it safe. Yeah, because there's a lot of kids on the app.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think flagging it fast is really important. I thought their trust and safety team was world class compared to what I saw and what I have seen afterwards. And yeah, I didn't realize how strong it was.
So were you super deep into content before you worked at TikTok?
No, I did not dare to touch content because I thought it was too scary of like I work here, I shouldn't create content. It's so weird. It's like I almost felt it was unprofessional to do it.
I think people do have that perception of content
Yeah,
creators. Yeah.
I was very nervous to do it for a super long time. I think it was mostly I started like vlogging, um, and then I made a couple of videos when I about product and career, and I mostly used that as a way to figure out how to edit. Yeah, and it took a really long time for any views to come in. Mm. But I never posted on TikTok in particular until like after I left.
Okay, so you didn't post on TikTok, but you were pretty big on YouTube, I feel like, in the era when you were at TikTok, right?
I don't think so. It was very small.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. It was grueling process. Yeah.
Okay. So TikTok wasn't the catalyst. So when did you end up investing more in content? Was that when you went to Discord?
I think so. I believe so because during TikTok time, pandemic, I lived in Taiwan for some time. Yeah, for several months, and it was awesome. And I felt like almost like all of tech went to Taiwan, Taipei, because there was no COVID there. So, but we had to work. I worked half US hours, half Asia hours. So it was like kind of helpful to be in the same time zone and then to reply in my afternoon and their afternoon. Yeah, but I spent a lot of time, I guess, being immersed in the expat community in Taiwan, which is amazing. Like, um, what is it? Kevin Lin, CEO, previous CEO of Twitch, was there, and he would host a lot of events, and we would just like He came to one of my events where I like sang in a lot of Disney songs, and it was like a big restaurant thing. There was I think a charity event that he hosted, and a lot of celebrities came. There were Patrick Lee, Rotten Tomatoes co-founder, was there, and I did an interview with him at Taipei Tech Arena, talking about his career and what's next. I think Steve Chen, co-founder of YouTube, was there. I didn't really get to talk to him a lot. A lot of like, there's a social club called Modern in San Francisco that I was a part of, and there's a lot of like VC tech founders that also were from that group, came to Taipei to hang. I think Dave Liu, managing partner at Hyphen Capital, which invests in a lot of API-based companies, was there. Journalists were there. Yeah, it was like a whole community of people who in the tech space, software engineers, designers, like salespeople, everything. Yeah.
So you came back and that's when you ramped up on content? Is that, we're trying to get the
Oh,
timelines
right.
here.
Let's see. I mean, oh, you know what? I used to do co-working streams at that time. Yeah, because of time zones. So I wouldn't have a lot of meetings at a certain pocket of time. And I felt like, I don't know, a little lonely. And I also was on the TikTok live team. I was like, okay, I just need a live stream and see what it feels like to be a streamer. And I just did co-working streams where it would just like no audio, put on lo-fi, and then just type away and do Pomodoro. It was very interesting. That's how I started a core community. And then I had vlogs. And oh, when I was in Taiwan, I shared my first what I do as a product manager video. And that got picked up like months later. Like, it didn't do very well. And then later it got picked up. After Taiwan, I came back to the States, moved to LA officially. And then I started to do like every other week YouTube videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So working at these social companies, it feels like it gave you more permission and you even wanted to use the live streaming technology that you were working on. So it feels like that kind of helped you build into this content world.
Yeah, that was big. And then when I joined Discord after I moved back to LA, I told myself, no, I have to focus on like what I want to do. And I have to have very clear boundaries and make sure I get to share my story online. And then I just use my platform as a way to recount a lot of the really intense career moments I've had that were not so great. And I think I felt like a common theme for me was erasure, erasure, erasure. And I've never felt more invisible in this career path. So I was like, this is my time to create that story and create a space for it. And I think that's what I did for a while. And then I switched to lifestyle because I was like, oh my God, this is so exhausting. Like, this is so intense. I have my one and done and I'm moving on. I did career tactics like negotiation, resume, but I don't know if you feel this way. When you get too tactical, your audience is very, it's not my favorite word, but they're very desperate. Like, can you help me? Can you review my resume? Can you mentor me? Can you just check this for me? Can you intro me? And I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is not the relationship I want. And I'm not going to be that person. Yeah, I do not have capacity for it. And it was kind of, this is my one and done. But I don't think this is sustainable for me.
So the inside baseball for listeners is like where product growth has found its product market fit tends to be that like there's already Lenny's newsletter. There's already Shreyas. Why should you even listen to Aakash? So when people are desperate, they're actually open to new sources of information. So I basically have two types of content. One is like for those desperate people because that's how I bring them into my funnel.
Yeah, I mean, you're very tactical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like I was working, and you worked a full time. You were a full-time product. So I felt when I was making my videos, I was like extending my work hours.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this is tiring. Like, I already worked a full week and now I got to write like 20 hours more in this script. Like, oh. And I had to fact check everything because PMs are so meticulous. And I think PMs are very scrutinizing too. So you get a lot of, oh, that's not right. Or technically, that's not how it is. And you're like, oh, God. Okay.
Yeah. People always ask me what my lifestyle was like when I was doing both. But realistically, I think my wife like looked back at our calendars. It was like 50 to 60 hours of work. And then after I'd put the kids to bed from like 10 to 2, I would be working on content, which is just like unsustainable.
It's
you can't
so
do both.
unsustainable. Yeah, a lot of people ask me that too for content. And I'm like, yeah, I just had no life. There was just work and this was my hobby. I have no other hobbies. You have a hobby, you play games, you go hiking, you go climbing. I got none of that. I don't do board game nights. You do. So, figure out what you want to spend your time in.
Yeah, I used to like when I would like talk to other creators who were feeling burnt out, it was always like, this is our video game, right? Like other people are going to play Diablo or whatever Elon's doing. We're editing, sitting here.
It's a lot of work, but it gets a lot of hate. Yeah, I would say you don't. I feel like a lot of PMs, if they try content, they get like bashed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was probably a transition point too, because I think product managers, you have to almost keep this optic of you are completely dedicated to your team. You're always 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and you have to be so on it, and your image has to be super trustworthy. But then when you branch out of content, it gets like there are places where you can be far more casual. And I think at that time, it wasn't as common for people to do content. I think this year, it's very common for people to do content. It's like, okay, whatever. But before, like 3 years, 4 years ago, it was hella cringe. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm currently working on my 2024 trends in PM piece, so that will go in there. I feel like you're right, where like so many more people are accepting of content creators in a professional environment in tech, where we see like tech sales influencers, we see marketing, finance, and I think product management has also benefited from that.
Yeah. So I think that's been a change. I remember like there was a girl on TikTok that did a day in the life of a product manager at Meta and got so bashed on. It was really sad to see because you know that you can't show your work online, and that is violating company policy or the employee handbook. So usually it's just like fun stuff, and then people just judge that so critically, and it's really painful to watch. I'm like, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so the line I wanted to thread there was try to understand like how you got to be such a big creator. And what I'm taking away is like you had this desire, you created space in your life, but also I think probably working at companies that were a little bit friendly to it helped you.
You mean Discord?
Discord and TikTok, they feel like they're social companies. Like they would be a little bit more okay with it than your average B2B enterprise SaaS company.
Oh, I guess compared to actually, I don't know. I
Mm,
think it's hit or miss. I would say like I would assume a Salesforce wouldn't really care what you do as long as it doesn't violate the line, but they're like,
hmm.
whatever, it's so big. But I do think Meta was very strict.
Really?
Yeah. I think they have very strict social media guidelines.
Because I think, yeah, they fired tech lead. Yeah.
It's crazy.
For his social media content. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to be very careful. And I think I had to get a lot of approval for anything. Like
Oh,
even if I
really?
spoke on a panel, I had to get approval. It would be a speaking engagement, and I would not be allowed to say that I worked at Facebook at the time and put that logo because it would look like they're sponsoring it or whatever. It's very strict, and it would take a lot of time to get approval, and they would ask me a bunch of questions. Um, and then at TikTok, there were also approvals, but I think it was just so chaotic. I wasn't really sure what was happening, and I don't think they cared about me at all. So I don't know. I don't know. I tried not to do stuff. I was like, this is my career. I need to take it. I need to make sure I build that trust and rapport. So I was very careful. Yeah, Discord, I would say they were more new to it because they never had anyone before doing social media, and because of me. Now there's a lot of company policies around it.
Oh,
Yeah, so I
wow.
worked with HR, and we helped craft the policy together. But they were friendly, but they were still like, I was being watched. So I was very careful not to share too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I always tell people who are PM content creators is like, talk about your product. Like, make sure that your company is seeing like a good amount of you promoting your product. I feel like people who do that really well are like Claire Vo. Like, she's always talking about like launch darkly this, launch darkly that. And I think that gives her permission to then talk about Chat BRD.
I think that's great. And I try to talk about it, but I can't, it has to be really surface level. It's like anything that you find that's already public, I can talk about, but I can't talk about reasons why behind it and what we didn't do. And I feel like that's interesting stuff. I'm like, oh, if only I could, that'd be so cool. So it was very surface level, which I never felt satisfied with. It's like this is why product is so gate kept. Yeah.
You mentioned Facebook, and that's where I wanted to go next because I feel like, were you a PM at Facebook or did you transition when you went to TikTok?
So it's a little complicated. I joined in product operations. And if you know that, it's like, how do I say this? They were not treated very well. Yeah, I would say because product ops is not very common in the industry. You have to be at a certain level or you're more hardware. So there's more QA involved and you need people like exclusively dedicated to that product space. And they work with QA actually, or, um, for product ops, I thought it was like low key and very messy org. And a lot of people got laid off after I left during layoff season. And it always felt like we were competing with the PMs on the team for relevancy. And there probably is like an overarching meta culture thing. There's so many people and you're fighting for impact during PSC season. And it's like so hard to find that rocket ship team or product to be on to get promoted. Yeah. So I was doing prod ops for a while in Facebook groups and I was on like three different teams, product teams. And we owned quality since PMs own their feature area, but they don't own the bridge between. So, for example, if I had in a Facebook event posted on Facebook pages, clicking into the Facebook event from pages, what does that link you to? Sometimes that link gets broken. So, we are here to make sure those flows are specced out and we own the bridges. And also all the bug reports and quality standards and what is shippable, what is ship ready. Yeah. Towards the end of my time there, I think a year in, I was like fighting so hard to transition. And as you may have heard, it's really hard to change career ladders, especially into product. And I was misleveled, one. And two, we had like a whole HR issue to get me properly leveled. And then I was able to like become closer to, or I was able to prove myself to a lot of the execs, and I started working on product work. Like because there's not enough PMs on certain teams because of reorgs. They're like, okay, can you just PM this? And I would be the PM in the role on the doc on the PRD, but not in my pay or title. And then I tried to transfer, and I think Deb Blue, VP of Marketplace at the time, was my executive sponsor. And she was like, yes, let's run it through. But HR was like, oh, we don't have headcount right now. And I think it would take 6 months for us to see if there's an opening. And you know that game. And so I'm like, 6 months? I don't know, man. For a chance to move? Like, I've seen this before. I've seen this carrot on the stick. And then TikTok was heavily recruiting, and I took the interview, and he got it. And I was like, I love working here, but I think I didn't join the right team at the right time. And I think the group's org, their time has passed. And I feel like if I have to fight for projects that are impactful, like that's not a good use of my time. I just want to build. Yeah.
So you did basically get to act as a PM, and in
I
product
did, I
ops, you
did.
really get to see product. So talk to us a little bit about, we've heard about the Discord culture and the TikTok culture. How does meta culture differ?
I feel like I can't really speak to it because I wasn't allowed to be in the room on a lot of product reviews. I almost like had to have my PM be the person to review my PRD and then be okay with it. Plus, I think they were so busy that no one really cared what I did. So they were like, just do this. And I'm like, okay. And I'll lead the team. And we got the requirements. And it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't like a 0 to 1 product. A lot of it was like feature parity, or I just need you to build this drop down, or like figure out how this feature is spec'd out. And it was, I would say, like very entry level. Yeah, I didn't run experiments. It was mostly it was very basic on Facebook events. Yeah. So I don't think I can speak to it. I think from the outside looking in, I felt really excluded. You know how like you have to fight to be in the meeting room and people forget you to forget to add you on the calendar invite. I felt like that happened a lot. And I was like, hey, I'm the lead on this. Like, can I be added to this meeting? I need to like look at other people's calendars to suss out when things are happening.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was,
I haven't been in that position, but it sounds very stressful.
yeah, that is, I think, more common than not.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, what I have heard about Meta's culture, like you mentioned and have alluded to, is that they do care quite a bit about documentation
Oh, yeah. They're
and
so
making
heavy.
really big bets, also, is something that I've heard quite a bit about. And then that they're pretty experimentation oriented.
Yeah. Everything is an experiment. Everything. Absolutely everything. It's kind of cool in a way, but it's also extremely messy to like track all of that because everyone's running their own things. Mm, but I was only there for like a year and a couple months or something. It wasn't super, or like just a year. It wasn't really long. And for most of it, I did prod ops, and that was like a differently run org. Yeah.
So, we've traced your history through different product cultures. I know you've done some interviewing, but if you were just giving generic advice to somebody, like trying to figure out like what is a good and isn't a good product culture, what would you tell them?
I think that having strong guiding principles from the product leadership, like they should really specify what it is they are and aren't, because you know how do I say this, huh? Like I feel like wedding planning has been very top of mind, but you know how people are like, oh, what do you want? Well, wedding planner would say, oh, what do you want in your wedding? What do you envision? And then the bride and groom are like, I don't know, I'm like pretty open. And then you show it to them, they're like, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And you're like, well, you should have told me. So having that initial set of guardrails and guiding principles and vision to understand what that culture is, like that's really important. And then um, explaining the decision making framework or philosophy behind the org. Like if you're a company that takes big bets, like you have to explain what that means and what a product manager can do at that level. And you have to explain why not. And if it's why not, then can I guess your rationale? Like if you say no, can I guess and understand it if you are the product leader or the executive? I have to be able to see that super clearly. Otherwise, it's just like ideas, shot down, and it's such a chaotic environment and you can't get anything done and everyone burns out and everything is proposed and failed, proposed and failed. That sucks. Yeah. So that's important. Also, I think a culture of honesty around failure, because I would say most of the experiments we run have not worked. And like, how do you not ding the product team for making a bet that didn't work out, but know that maybe it takes 5 bad bets to know that you're going to get a rocket ship. And the world of playing the optics game is very sensitive. Not everyone wants to do it. Not everyone's good at it. And so I think that culture needs to come from top down. Also being really clear on who gets final say. Yeah, like between growth and trust and safety, or this team versus that team, having clear areas of ownership. And like if there is conflict, you just have to make the call and make sure everyone knows what that looks like. Yeah. So I feel like those are my main things. I guess from leadership, unrealistic staffing with unrealistic deadlines. I'm just like, dude,
Ubiquitous, though.
like you think I can just use 20% of this designer's time and come up with all of this myself? Like, are you for real? Like, we're not going to get a full-time one? Yeah. I think staffing is an exec's job, not mine. Not mine.
Trust isn't just earned, it's demanded. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned professional scaling your GRC program, proving your commitment to security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Centralized security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Vanta can help you start or scale your security program by connecting you with auditors and experts to conduct your audit and set up your security program quickly. Plus, with automation and AI throughout the platform, Vanta gives you time back, so you can focus on building your company. Join over 9,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, my listeners get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/Aakash. That's vanta.com/AAKASH for $1,000 off. I think that probably the biggest thing that I look for also is staffing. Like, I've walked into situations where they're like, we want to hire you to build out the team. And that always raises a red flag for me. It's like, wait, so there's no designer? There's no engineers? Like, why are you even hiring me?
I know. And then I think the hardest thing is you set that vision and goal at the beginning of the year, and then staffing changes, and then you don't move the deadline for that vision goal, that objective that you own. And everyone hates each other towards the deadline. And I feel like leaders should be very, very aware of that and manage everyone else, like outside of product, to understand that there are going to be delays if we're going to switch the company this way. Yeah.
You did something super cool, which is you broke into product management without a product management title. So how did you do that?
It was so hard. Wait, you weren't in product before.
I started product in 2008, so a long, long time ago.
Oh my God, that's a long time ago.
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know about product management until my second company, my second job at this live streaming startup. I was in BD at the beginning, and we did everything under the sun: marketing, operations, content management. And then I did BD with closing a lot of contracts and partnerships with gaming companies, publishers, as well as content creators. And then I focused on our I think I was a senior manager managing all of our deals with content creators and building production together. But because we're so early on, I always got the requirements and the pain points and requests from those creators and streamers. And then I shared it with our engineering team. And we didn't have a product manager at the time. So I was like, no matter how hard I sold the company and the product, I'm always bottlenecked by the product and features. There's no more selling I can do when I see these people's livelihoods at hand and they are operating in real time trying to make a living. So we need to get better at this. Like, why do we get a spot before Twitch, before YouTube Live, before all of these other apps? Who are we in the industry, and why are we better at community? Why are we better at monetization? Why is digital items a good thing instead of AdSense and ad revenue? So I feel like I spent a lot of time specking out the why and the pain points and what potential solutions could be. And then I tried to become a PM internally. And that, as you know, that's really hard to do. And they were like, no shot. We are not going to do that. Yeah, stay in your lane. And I'm like, all right, cool. And also there are other things going on where it was an amazing company, but then we raised too much money. And then when you raise a lot of money, you get all of these personalities who just want a lot. And it became extremely toxic. And everyone was like fighting with each other. It's Game of Thrones. People were getting fired left and right. People were like whispering in people's ears. And I was there since day one. I was the first non-engineering hire. And people used me a lot to like combat each other and fight each other. They'd be like, okay, can you turn this report around? Because we're going to go with a proposal. And then I'm currently doing the other person's proposal. And I'm just like, oh my God. So it was so crazy. The most amount of politics I've ever been in my life or ever seen in my life. And I just happened to be in the middle of it all. And it was the worst. It was such collateral damage. So because of that, and because I tried to change internally, I decided, yeah, this is just not this is not the company I liked, that I enjoyed joining, and that's okay. The company gets to do what the company wants to do, and it's time for me to go, and that's when I try to pursue product. But product managers, you don't get to be a PM without any real product experience. I think I did get perhaps 2 PM offers from like lower tier, very low tier. I don't even remember them. They're probably in my inbox. But I was like, I want to learn from the best. I'm going to go to Facebook. And even if it's not a PM role, and even if it's like levels below me and pay below me, but whatever. But yeah, it was grueling because the interview process is so non-intuitive for me. It's like, dude, this is like a whole new skill set. No one ever told me this. Yeah. And I think I spent like over half a year prepping. But it was so hard. If you've never seen it before, you'll never really think about it in the way PMs do. So that was tough. But yeah, I finally got the offer at Facebook and then tried to transition and then got it at TikTok. And I was sweating. It was hard.
So what worked for you? Did you practice a lot of case interviews? Did you
Product
try to get
sense, product
closer to
execution.
product managers at the companies you were working at to see more of their work? What were the main techniques that worked well for actually securing this TikTok role?
The TikTok role. I did. Let me think. At Facebook Meta, do you call it Facebook? Because at the time it was Facebook, right? So I'm like, at the time it was Facebook, but right now we call it Meta. So at Facebook, I try to get close to PMs, but it's like that kind of culture where you're like, oh, I would love to chat and talk about your work. And they're like, yeah, can you check my calendar like 3 weeks from now? And you're like, okay, well, I came from startup where we can just talk like today or tomorrow. And I just felt this is so hard. I can't talk to anyone. And then I feel like the PMs I met had always fell into product. They always like came from a tech background, tech family. They probably were APM, RPM programmed in, or a spot just happened to open. And I felt like I had to viciously fight. Yeah. So that sucked. But I just networked the shit out of myself and met as many PMs as possible to understand like their brain. And not just like PMs, product analytics too, or people who work, other data scientists and designers to just understand how they view this role. Like, is this for me? And then I learned the storytelling aspect because pitching presentations, I feel like PMs have to own narratives very often of a feature, and when it fails, like how do you articulate why, and when it succeeds, also articulate why. And then I read a lot of people's PRDs, product specs, and I followed all their posts on Workplace at Facebook. And then read a lot of books, all the books, the Decode and Conquer, whatever, every entrepreneurship podcast. How I built this was like my Bible. I don't know. And then TikTok interview came and I just prepped. They did through LinkedIn. They DM'd me. And I was like, a person on my team was joining. So it was an engineer. So it was already on my radar. And I just prepped the shit out of it. Yeah. I just really owned my space. I was like, I predicted every single question I could get, and I had answers for everything. And I had like, same interview techniques where you have the same 5 stories and you figure out how to maneuver it. I got a lot better at product sense, product execution, but I think theirs was a little hard. And then, I got it. I was really happy.
So how'd you engineer them reaching out to you? Did you like create your LinkedIn profile so that they thought she's a potential product manager? Because usually product manager roles don't reach out to non-product managers.
That's so true. And I just think that TikTok at the time was reaching out to anyone who worked in big tech.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, don't you get them sliding into your DMs?
TikTok reached out to me multiple times, but at least I'd been a product manager for a while.
No, they reached out because not everyone wanted to say yes to TikTok because of so many reasons.
The ban
right?
and all the stuff that Trump was talking about when you joined.
Like even then, people were not always like bought in because it's like, oh, it's that app. It wasn't as cool then.
Yeah.
It was like kind of cool. It was like cool, but kind of still cringe. Like you see a lot of strange TikTok content.
Yep.
And I just use the word product everywhere. Like, because as a partner manager who worked on figuring out how to prioritize how monetization would work on the startup, I would, of course, my title would be I put partnerships and product. And then I would create 2 subsections. One is all my partnerships work and what are the deals I closed and what was the impact of it on the platform level. Like these projects increased our average viewership, blah, 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 live stream, like views, every key metric that was important. And then in the product section, my work resulted in these feature launches and feature releases, which how do they impact our top line metrics? That's how I wrote it. And then at Facebook, I did the same thing. And it would say product operations. And then I'd be like, I'm a product operations lead on these projects. And then I don't think I wrote that I PM'd anything at Facebook because I was like a little scared, but I did say I was like the designated, I don't know, I think maybe I said designated product lead for this project, like on Facebook Lite or something, and then would share the metrics of impact. Yeah. So I wrote it like a PM resume as best as I could. Launched features, released this, led a team of XYZ engineers, designers, data scientists, and I think my more junior, my earlier career, I'd be like, oh, I prioritized and wrote a strategic roadmap, and you just have that. And then as you go, you're like, you actually worked on this feature, you launched this, you scoped this out, you conducted the user research, which led to XYZ features. Yeah. So I think that helps, sincerely.
So if I had to break it down for folks, and this is basically what my newsletter does, goes deep on case studies and then tries to create general principles for folks, is one, super name brand employers, right? Even going back to your Google days, like you had those name brands that TikTok would want. The second thing is you very proactively within Facebook were trying to become a PM. You were PMing projects where they didn't have PM. So you actually had real PM work experience without the title. And then the third thing is it seems like your LinkedIn was set up to be a magnet for product manager roles. It seems like those are the three key elements. Is that right?
I think so. I hate how the brand names had to play into this, but I think that's why I took the Facebook job and not a real PM role at another company. I don't think there's a right answer. It was just what I thought would be easier at the time, given the opportunities I had. Yeah, I almost feel like I could have been a better PM if I were just a PM from the get-go at another company, and where I actually had to own and learn and iterate through various like product areas. Whereas this one felt more, I had to like, yeah, as you said, manufacture to be a magnet. I think I just struggled a lot to break in. I just wanted it so badly.
So many people can relate with you. And I think that's why your content succeeds, to be honest, is because you are so relatable. You actually tell the hard parts, the rough parts. So
Yeah, it's a struggle. I have gotten comments from other PMs. She's like, that would say like, oh, I'm not a PM. I've only worked at X. I didn't even do PM work. And I'm like, there's so much more to that. Like sometimes it's a privilege to have that job, and I would have given anything to be in that role and to do it. And so when I finally got it, I poured all of my heart in. I was like so happy. It was hard. It was very hard. But from someone who doesn't come from a family or an upbringing that has those connections and even knew what this was, it felt so distant from me. Yeah, and I had to like fight in, and no one gave me the time of day. Nobody.
yeah. And so I think that the other underrated element was you kind of immersed yourself in product culture. You mentioned you were listening to entrepreneurship podcasts, you were reading all the books. If you had to rack your brain, like what were those things? Like what was your content diet?
At that time, oh my gosh. Uh, I mean, I remember Decode and Conquer was like very much,
Lewis Lynn?
yeah. And then Radical Candor,
Okay.
Tim Scott, Inspired.
Marty Kagan,
Yeah.
the OG.
There's like the Sprint one.
Yeah, it's like a design person,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I also did the design of everyday things.
Nice.
Gosh, I feel like, oh,
So you didn't just stick to product management content. You also did how I built this. You tried to get
yeah.
really deep into all of the elements of
Yeah.
building successful products.
Yeah. I think what was cool about my startup days was became kind of a specialist in the live streaming space to understand like the Chinese streaming market and their feature sets and how monetization is driven in culture and just interaction between audience and the creator, as well as how the metrics work and how it's differently viewed from VOD content. So that I think that was a differentiator. I am not a generalist. I'm not a consultant. You cannot give me like any question and I can give you a framework answer. I'm a specialist. I only know my space and I know it very well and I have strong opinions about it. But yeah, if you like ask me about fintech and healthcare tech and be like, how would you improve this? I'd be like, dude, I don't fucking know. Like what? That's not my space. I do not think about it whatsoever. So I know there are people who come from consultant roles who are like so good at just talking it out. but I'm such a tinker. I really try to distill what it is, the essence of the problem of the person going through the flow. It's so human for me. Yeah. I try to like find that
So
story.
that might have been an edge. Did they hire you for TikTok Live to begin with?
I don't think they knew what they wanted to staff me for. I think they
Okay.
just kind of like, I need to hire a lot of people. And I was staffed onto comments and live, and then was the product lead for the bullying and harassment vertical for trust and safety. Yeah.
Because I do often recommend that as another technique for
Yeah.
people is like go to whatever domain you know
Yes.
well and try to
Yes.
break into that domain because at least then you have those opinions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was the suggestion that I was given too, like become an expert in healthcare tech. And then no matter what, you can transition over. But if you're a generalist, you got to go to like the brand name route and then you can transition over. So I felt like I wasn't good at thinking on the spot enough. And I just decided this is my area and I'm just going to be really good at it. Yeah.
Very cool. Talk to us now about the Discord role. How'd you land that?
They reached out. Yeah, Rick
So you
reached out.
generated inbound again. How did you generate the inbound if you had to deconstruct it?
I don't think I was trying that hard because I've unfortunately stayed at companies not as long. And I think that's like a huge criticism people have of my career. And I'm just like, it wasn't my choice. Like, if I could, I would stay. But I had to fight a lot and find the right opportunities because I'm such an invested person. And then at TikTok, I just knew I learned a lot and there are good people there. But I just knew it wasn't for me sustainably because of the night meetings and
Yeah.
because they can't take me seriously.
Mm.
I'm just like an Asian American woman who's like actually a little bit more vocal than other people. And so I feel like the guys there were just confused about my identity. And I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then people usually like don't say anything. And I'm like, I need to adapt to this culture. Like I need to EQ this up and understand it is a Chinese company. It is not an international global, it's a Chinese company.
Hmm.
Yeah. I learned a lot of Chinese. I know how to say product manager in Chinese now. That's fun. But yeah, I think that my manager or Rick reached out because he saw that I created content. Not a lot, but I created some content. And he knew that I started communities of my own. So my Discord server, or actually I didn't start a Discord server at the time, that I understood like what it meant to foster an audience.
That would have
or
been a huge
community.
in if you had a Discord server, but
Yeah,
the
I
content.
was already using Discord for a while because I worked in gaming.
Okay.
But I used it mostly for working. Like I did DM these people and with it was mostly DMs. It wasn't servers. Yeah. So when I got the outreach, it was because it showed up on LinkedIn because I was a product manager, and I think TikTok is a very recognizable product. And then the content aspect. So he thought I understood the users. And then when there was a take home portion, I just studied the shit out of Discord's servers. Like I went and joined. I like interviewed within the span of like a weekend. I dug into maybe 20 to 30 servers and then called up my friends who knew people in those servers and got into group chats with the admins of those servers and try to understand their pain points. I called people who owned Discord servers and I just wanted to get their opinion on it. How hard is it to create a community? Why do they create a community? And I had a whole user research appendix. Yeah, with all of my notes, with all of these servers. And that helped me like really understand. I think that user empathy was my superpower.
That's what I always tell people. And it's actually crazy. Like my last role was a VP. So I'd hire like directors. There would be directors who hadn't used the product. It's actually crazy when you look at your competition. They're sometimes so like focused in on their current full-time job that they're not giving that much effort to the search.
Yeah. And in Discord is such a niche platform that everyone has their own experience of it. And it's actually really hard to generalize with that kind of platform. But like on other platforms, you kind of understand what what the various cultures, kind of like Facebook. Facebook's kind of hard to understand. Can you guess if people are going to click on this? Like, it's kind of hard. Discord is very similar. It's very hard to tell. So you really need to spend that time. And then once I joined, I think 400 servers, and I had 2 accounts, and I joined 200 each, and that was max cap for server joins. And I just went through them all. And I was like, who are you? What are you? Why do you talk about this? What do you talk about? Yeah.
So you went super deep on the user research, and I think that's a huge differentiator in the interview process.
Yeah, I think that was important. I mean, the interview process was like very long. So I think 7 loops or something. Oh my God, it's so tiring.
Mine was longer. It was like 11 or something. Yeah.
I mean, that's VP level, right? Oh, wait, group.
That was group PM there. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
What the
It was
heck?
super
11's
long.
like ridiculous. I thought
Yeah.
7 was absurd because
Yeah.
Facebook's literally like 2.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like two core competency loops. They took out like behavioral, whatever.
Yeah. Big tech is way more streamlined than
Yeah.
mid-sized tech in general.
But I think they only had 1 headcount to hire, so they
Okay.
really needed it. They
Mhm.
he only had 1, yeah. And I
Very
got
cool.
it. Yes.
So that's how you got the job. What is your sort of generic advice for, there's a lot of laid-off PMs still on the market who are job searching. How should they be approaching the job search?
I'm assuming it's been hard to get callbacks, even with their resumes.
The most common thing I really hear actually is that they're getting interviews, but in the end, usually they end up going with some other candidate who didn't have a job gap.
What? That's so late. That's so silly.
That's pretty common,
A
yeah.
job gap does not mean anything to me. Why would they be upset at a job gap?
Yeah, it's super common. That's what I found with the laid-off PMs especially. I was just talking to one this morning actually. So I do these calls like 2 or 3 times a day.
A day?
Yeah, talking to different PMs who are subscribers and
Wow.
just so that I know what their pain points are so I know what to write about.
I love that about you. I think that's great. Yeah.
And yeah, that was his feedback. Like we went through, what I always make people do is I make them go through their funnel as the first thing. So I want to know their metrics. So we looked at his metrics and like he's getting plenty of interviews, but he often makes final round 2, but he never gets an offer. Like he hasn't an offer. He's on the market for 11 months now. And when we like tried to dig into the feedback, like, yeah, when we tried to look at like who they actually hired, it was often people who hadn't had a layoff, who are currently employed. All right, so we relived the past product management career. We even talked job searching. I want to talk about how you're breaking the internet right now with 30 by 30. How did this project come together?
This year was a lot of projects. And yeah, I did a lot this year, and I always wanted to do like a 30 lessons learned by 30. Like it's a very common format on YouTube. And I did it on my podcast, actually. We did like an episode called 33 Lessons by 33. And then I decided that I wanted to grow my short form audience. Okay, I guess to backtrack, yeah, I got laid off in January. I am taking a gap year trying to do creative things, and I don't know what's to come next year. But I knew that content was something I've always wanted to keep. And I feel like it's such a precious thing to me. I've always been a niche creator, like niche in product space, and not a lot of people know about product in the world. And I thought, oh, is it possible for me to share content that is more, has a more applicable audience? And then I switched to lifestyle. And then I wanted to create a 30 lessons series to dedicate to my 20s. Yeah. And I saw that episodic formats were happening in short form. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I have a friend named Oh My God Adrian, or his tag is OMG Adrian. He is a Filipino filmmaker, award-winning Filipino filmmaker, and humongous on Instagram. And he pushed me to do this series, to do it every single day. Yeah, for 30 days. I don't know if I'll make it, but we're doing it, and it's live, and it's happening, and here we are.
And it's actually insane. Like each short has, I don't know, like 30 camera angles or 30 different shots, at least that I've seen. How are you putting this together?
The same way I do every other video. Yeah, I have my camera, I have my tripod, and then I think about every line, and I'm like, what's the best way to deliver this line visually and audibly? And then I have a shot list and I have a script, and for every line I map it to a location, and like, is it a mid shot, a wide shot, a close up shot? And I think about the line before that and the line after, what makes visual sense, and then can I create a physical metaphor for it? Like, oh, I have a lesson on what do you do when your life falls to pieces or falls apart, and then I have like a Jenga tower falling. Yeah. So how do I play with video and really understand it? I guess my bigger picture bet on how we consume information is through video. And I really wanted to spend this year understanding what that meant. Yeah. Like, how do we talk about anything through video? And how do I figure out the toolkits and tool sets? So a lot of it is building my skills and competencies, like editing, generating images, lighting, all the technicalities. I learned so much about production, gear, angles, color grading, sound design, motion graphics, literally everything. Yeah. So that's how it's been.
But it's actually produced so fast. So what is like your workflow? Like, are the 30 topics decided in advance, and then in the day of you're creating your shot list and the how far away it is and all these things, like your script, or how are you managing it?
I went in. Okay, so Adrian told me I better get all 30 videos done before I enter, but I've never batched that many videos. I'm like I work on the latest video right before type of person, because video is a new skill for me. Like, I've done it casually for the last 3 years before January, but since January, it has been such a new skill set. If you look at my videos in January, they're so different from today. And people think I'm like this creative, like crazy creative person, but I literally have a STEM background. I have not taken a single art class. I'm like very corporate. Like, I'm just like extremely, I'm into that world. Yeah. And so flexing my creative muscles is like so foreign to me. Like, I freak out, and it's so non-intuitive. And this year I'm finally gaslit myself into thinking I am a creative. And I was like, if I were, what would I do? I'm just gonna call it. How do I be like the most creative self? And I optimized on growing that skill set, like as a core competency. Yeah, and it's a lot of work. So I went in. I was really busy in November. I had a lot of. So this launched December 1st. In November, I like had so many events. Like, there was a Spotify summits, there was YouTube, like talking to YouTube and the product manager summit. There was LinkedIn at the LinkedIn marketing offsite, and I was closing down Jomo, my podcast, and we still had a lot of work to close up. There's a lot of business meetings that happen behind the scenes, and of course my everyday deliverables for my sponsored content, my organic content, etc. And then at that time, I only had like 9 videos prepped. I think 9 or 10. But I wrote like the titles of lessons up to like maybe 20, and I had 15 more that I'm just like, I'm not really sure which to choose, because I have so many learnings, but not every learning is a video. Like, for example, a lesson I had is exercise, food, like eating well and sleep solve 80% of my problems. I don't know how to do a video on that, but it is like something that if I have an issue, I just go to sleep, or I just eat better, or I just work out. And then I'm like, oh, I feel better. I think I'm good now. Yeah. So I only had those videos going in. And do I have a video tomorrow? I hope I do. I really hope I do. Yeah. So we'll see. It's likely that I don't do it consecutively, but it'd be like that. It's fine. I think it was great.
So you are like a true crunch last minute creative where the deadline is really helping you create.
Okay. Fascinating thing. I think I am, but compared to other creators, I am not. I am the most organized person to them. I'm like a freak. I'm so organized. I have like my tables and my Notion docs and everything. And they're like, oh my God, you have it already until next week? Like, that's crazy. Like, if I have a video today, I'm doing it today. And I'm just like, oh my God, you truly are creative. I'm not there, but I thought I'm not here. Like, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about these amazing brand collaborations, like
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Mhm.
What? That was mind-blowing when I saw LinkedIn was a sponsor of
Yeah.
yours.
I'm
You just
very
mentioned you spoke at the YouTube Summit. I
Yes,
believe I saw you at some very exclusive Spotify event.
I
How are you putting
was.
all these sponsor relationships together?
I don't think I ever reached out. So I've never done any outbound this year because I was like, this is not the year for me to be pitching myself. It's the year for me to understand. I feel like this is year one of a new space, and I need to know how to do my craft first.
Yeah.
And opportunities and money will come. Like, it is not a big deal. But what's fascinating is that because of my product experience, I've been able to speak to these companies in a way that they understand. A lot of creators are also, I think they're intimidated by big tech and corporations. And I probably should be, but I've, just grown the audacity, honestly, this year. And I just kind of say it as it is, which makes me fear going back to corporate. I'm just like, oh, how do I mold myself to the right communication practices? But I'm very much like, as a PM and as like my own business owner, I need to get to the bottom of this. Like, what are we really doing here? And what is the point? I need to get the point of this. And if that's your product, if that's your campaign, if it's that's this contract or this program, we need to suss it out. And I think because I speak at that level of rigor, some people really like it because they need feedback for their roadmaps, for their plans. They don't want people to be like, oh, I really like it, or like, oh, I guess this is hard, blah, blah, blah. It's not very tactical. And I think I'm all about being very tactical. And so all of them came individually. I think LinkedIn first reached out to me to work together on campaigns. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a dream because my platform's all about helping people in their career, like getting their jobs, getting their bag, networking, and especially for people who don't have resources. I feel like LinkedIn really opened doors for people who don't live and weren't brought up in the space. So I love that so, so much. Um, and then they wanted me to speak as a creator, a video creator for their marketing offsite, which is like almost 1,000 people in San Diego. And that was awesome. But that was more from a perspective of like a video creator on LinkedIn, which is a very new thing. And then I went to the spot. I am a Spotify, like a Radar Creators Program creator. I don't know exactly how to explain the program, but my podcast, The Joy of Missing Out, Joma Pod, got picked up, and their partnerships team really, really liked it. And so we're one of the creators that they manage. And because we're doing so well on Spotify, they invited me to be part of their creator council. And other people who are on it are like Colin Samir and like Modern Wisdom and Two Idiot Girls. That's Drew, the Afawalo sisters from TikTok, and like so many other humongous. I think the Dropouts were on it too, are on it in it too. And there's such large podcasts, but we were the podcasts that probably grew the fastest this year. One of the fastest. We're like breakout creators of 2024. Spotify Wrapped. I don't really know what it is, but we're breakout creators. Yeah. And then for that council, they really wanted us to give intense feedback as podcast creators and video creators in the space. And how do we and Spotify help contribute to the cultural conversation in media, in society, and like, how politics was and podcasts were a big thing this year. What does it mean to be in the health space or in the horror space or in the wellness and business and entrepreneurship space? And how can we dissect at the product feature level how these features are going to impact how you create? And I think that was so fascinating. I can't share like super specifics because it's like confidential, but that was that. I really love being in that role. I get to see that product from the customer standpoint and see like what I want. If I were in their shoes, what I would tell them and what I would do. And then similarly to YouTube, I got to speak at the Product Manager Summit with over 750, like all the PMs at YouTube flew in to Mountain View. And Amjad, who is the VP of product for creators, was there, and the CPO was there. And yeah, everyone was there. And I basically shared my feedback and then yeah, I just shared my journey and was like, these are my wishes. Yeah, there's a way more like specifics, but I don't think I can share publicly. So that was that. And it's really cool to have the best of both worlds.
So I don't know if you're like this, but I've had so much inbound that I just never process. Like, how do you even find the time for like sponsor these relationships take a ton of time. As soon as you respond, they want to get on the phone. Then you have to hammer out the invoice, and they have 17 changes on the invoice. Then when you actually do the thing, they want to review the content 72 hours before. They have 5 revisions that go over 5 cycles. Like sponsor relationships take forever. So most of my tier 1 inbound, I've just totally ignored. How do you process all of this?
Huh. Uh, it's a lot. Um, I don't, I think I have an extremely high capability to process communication. Like I think you had to at Facebook. Like you're always getting pinged. There's always notice. There's always posts to read. There's always things to respond to. And then TikTok was also crazy. Discord's crazy. So my ability to funnel through. And I worked in BD before. This is like all just the same. I've actually become worse than what I was before on purpose because I don't think it's always good to respond to everything. I used to respond to everything. Uh, I have said no a lot. Like I do try to respond and say no, or I just decide I'm not going to take any. Like I don't take podcast stuff. Like you're like the only one I've taken in this half year, except for Asian Boss Girl. Um, I I am very particular about what I go to and don't go to. So I get a lot of inbound because I live in LA. There's a lot of events happening. There's literally an event. There's a gala tonight that I'm not going to because I can only do so much. Like I think I'm definitely, in an earlier stage of life than you, but I have only ever worked like a horse since high school. And I can, my body's so tired. I can only do so much. My like puny brain can only process that much
But you're still
information.
amazing with communications, and any
I
message I've ever sent
try.
to you, you respond
Oh, not
to.
on X though, because I don't use X because X is scary. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're really good at responding to communication. You manage these brand relationships.
Oh, actually, well, I did sign with or not sign. I joined representation in January for them
Mm.
for someone else to take my inbox. But so super hot take. I just don't because I'm a corporate person. I can handle this inbox myself, and I wasn't sure what management was doing, and I had to almost coach the emails. And I was like, "Hey, look, pretty much like I think I would say like 90% of the industry and talent management is more junior than me. And I've worked in BD before and I've had my own roster and I know comms and I can negotiate myself and I'm really good at pitching because I had to fight tooth and nail to get myself into the roles that I got in my career and I understand storytelling. So that was a very difficult relationship for me to manage because it felt like I had one extra meeting every single week. I had to update someone on everything I had to do, and I would get an email. They'd be like, "Did you read the email?" And I was like, "Okay." I had to read the email, and they're like, "What do you think of my response? What do you think we should say?" And I would say, "This is what I think you should say." Like, "What do you think of this?" And I'm like, "Okay, fine. That looks good. I'm gonna tweak it a little bit." And like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna send it." When I could have just sent it from the get go, you know? So that relationship ended.
Okay.
And then come August, September, I decided that I would not take any more brand deals for Q4, which is the busiest season as a content creator because everyone's trying to use up their marketing budget. I turned down everything. Yeah. So I didn't close anything in Q4 because I was like, I felt from a long term career standpoint, I didn't put in my reps in. I didn't put enough reps in. I don't think I have I don't know if I'm like talking down on myself, but I don't think I have what it takes to be like those mainstream influencers. I don't have that charisma or that aura. And I've always come from the corporate side, and I'm not sure if that is what the internet wants. So I felt I really need to find my voice and my style and my craft. And I need to go through my training arc. Yeah. So I decided to say no to everything. And that was really hard because I was like, oh, money's scary. Like, oh my God. Um, so that was Q4 for me. Sponsorships are hard. They take forever. Every time I do it, I pour my heart and soul into it.
Today you broke 400,000 on Instagram. You broke 300,000 on YouTube. I have to be honest, after listening to you, and this is also what I say in our private DMs podcast, folks,
Mm.
is I think you're sitting on way more money and potential than you realize.
What? Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah, of course. Like, so somebody had to tell me this, by the way. When I was a VP of product, when I first joined Apollo IO, like a month in, I met with this 22-year-old kid who I still talk to now. And he was like, do you know that you are sitting on a gold mine? And he was like, like, what are you doing? Like, why did you join as VP of product? Because I literally thought you were just going to monetize this gold mine that you're sitting on. And I was like, I'm sitting on a gold mine? Now here I am with a team of 8 and like moving to LA and et cetera, et cetera. So
Welcome, by
yeah,
the
somebody
way.
had to tell me that, that how much I was sitting on. But yeah, when you're getting tier 1 advertisers like LinkedIn and YouTube and stuff like that, like, I don't know if you know how much Chris Williamson, like you mentioned, Modern Wisdom is on that same, you're in that category of Modern Wisdom level creators. I'm pretty sure his brand deals are like 10 million plus a year
Yeah,
brand deals.
he's raking it in like that.
Yeah.
He's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's such a big conversation.
Yeah, I
am
literally
so...
think you're sitting on like more than 8-figure business just in
Thank
yourself.
you. I am far from that. Jesus Christ. I am so far. And I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think a few things, like it's hard to scale, as you said, and I don't think I have the patience. And I'm such a, you know how sometimes it's better for you not to be good at something, so you go higher for that? I'm just like, my curse is I'm really good at everything and I will go learn to do it myself. And then it's gotten to the point where I'm just like better than every other editor I meet. And I'm
Yeah,
just
of
like,
course you
okay,
are.
well, you can't really help me. There's a certain look I need, coloring, pacing, and I'm so confused by the labor market around this space.
Mm.
It's a very interesting conversation, and I know that's not just my own. Talent management is another thing. Like I'm just a really intense, rigorous pitcher myself, and I can speak on the same level, and I'm unafraid. And I don't know. I will point blank tell executives, I don't understand what value your company brings. Can you outline it for me? And then we go line by line, bar for bar, and just talk about, but what does that mean? Like, what are we doing here? Like, can you back that up? Because that's not a convincing line to say. And they get freaked out. And then I'm like, well, I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm just trying to understand because I'm such a different profile. So I haven't figured out where my place is in all of this. Yeah, I really appreciate you giving me that the honor of like sitting on a gold mine and you believing in me. That's really sweet. Like especially from someone who's from industry. I fear that people like judge me in the tech space for doing what I do. I don't think people like it. And I just try my best. I just try my best every
I just
day.
feel like if you go back to corporate, let's say you become a VP of design at Meta, or you become a VP of product at Meta, like what are you earning? I don't know, $1.5 million. But your potential as a creator is literally like at least 10x that.
That's crazy.
That's
That's
my personal
crazy.
opinion.
We shall see. I think this year was never about money. And thankfully, I had a pretty decent career. So I can see, I didn't have to do too much and I don't spend that much money, to be honest. And so I was able to like focus on one thing at a time. Yeah, like, do I have what it takes to make a podcast? Do I have what it takes to make a course? And do I have what it takes to like work on initiatives in Taiwan and help like Tech for Taiwan, or even do short form or even do YouTube? Like I didn't, all of these are new questions for me. I never knew if I could. So that's what I wanted to tackle. Next year is when I want to take it up a whole other notch and have built a team. And I have been getting more I have had a lot of inbound for building a team around me, like representation. A lot of deals are coming at me, and I'm very wary because I'm like, to me, I follow people, I don't follow business. And if I lose that element and that essence, it's very easy to suss out when a creator is like, okay, they're just doing it for the deal. They're no longer their core. I can feel that so fast. So I want to make sure I have a strong core first. And then when that deal comes, I'm able to understand where that is in my life. Yeah. And I feel good about it and create good stuff.
Was there design school too? I saw shorts
Oh,
around
yes. Oh
that.
my
That's
God. That was
happening
a whole
too.
era.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I could not for the life of me design anything. And now I took a typography class at Art Center in Pasadena. That was so cool. My instructor was a Disney Imagineer for like 20 years, designing a lot of the experiential things
Yep.
around the theme park and how you navigate and like, yeah. So it was cool. It's very theoretical though. It's very history based. I feel like between design and product, design has so much more history than product. It's like it just come from such long ago. There's eras, there's artists, there's everything. Yeah, so much more rich in history.
So you explored that, you explored being a creator, and I think you took some interviews too. I saw some like interview or job search related content too, right?
Um, I did hop on a few interviews, but I felt it wasn't right. Like, I think my scarcity mindset was like, I need to get a job. Oh my God, I'm gonna be one of those people who can't get jobs because I didn't try right away. So I took a few interviews, but it felt wrong. It felt like I was just going to another of the same. And I was like, at this point in my career, I really, whatever I do, I just know that my personality is just like, this is my thing. I'm going to do it. And I didn't want to run or chase something that, like, just fall into something just to have it. Yeah. So I held back and I was like, trust my gut. I need to, for the first time ever, bet on myself. And I don't know how scary it was for you to leave Apollo to do your own thing. But it was really terrifying for me to, like, not try to knee jerk back into corporate.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, the income that I was making was already equivalent to VP of product
That's
at a
great.
unicorn company. So the income wise, it was just like whatever. But the same math that you have, except I don't think I could realistically be pulling in like $10 million deals, but easily $1 million deals. Yeah, that's why.
I mean, that's amazing. And I think you're doing something different in the space that people need. And I feel like had I had it, I would have turned out different. Yeah, back then.
You're
Yeah.
too nice. So what's next for Chloe? Like, how would you forecast 2025?
I had my wedding. Yeah. So that's going to be a big arc of life because I'm more lifestyle. Um, I want to share what it's like in that. I also have a lot of dreams on my own like experiences and products and podcasts, season 2, and doing big projects. I would like to come out with my own products as well. I would like to launch a newsletter as well. And I also want to produce, I think next year is my era of fiction and fantasy versus career reality vlogging. Because I was like doing a lot of inner work on what I care about in the world and what gets me going. And I'm such like a fiction fantasy lover. Like I love my dramas. I love my animes. I love a good fantasy, yeah, I guess one of those, what is it called where you reincarnate, go back in time and you're like in a different era and like a period drama and there's like knights and kings and queens and politics and like a warlord. Like that's crazy. I think that is fun to me. Also, another thing that I realize I do need a team to support me and get me to that next level, but I need to figure that out because I really want to be at the top of the industry, whatever I choose. So I know I love content that will never go away. I haven't figured out where tech falls in yet because I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that going back to tech full time as a product manager or even like a leader, a product leader, makes sense given the content side. I almost need a hybrid role, and I don't know if that exists quite yet. And maybe there will come an
There
opportunity.
totally is. I mean, do you know who Logan Kilpatrick is?
Mm-mm.
So he is uh not he is half product manager, half content
Oh
creator.
wow.
So he is the face of Google Gemini on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
And everything AI happens on Twitter, like literally
Yeah.
everything. And so when you think about Google and AI, I would say people on Twitter think less Sundar Pichai, think more Logan
Interesting.
Kilpatrick. Yeah.
Okay, so another conflict of interest would be all the other products that I represent.
Yeah.
So what's cool was that actually as a content creator, I'm exposed to way more product and companies and brands than I was as a PM, because as a PM, you like kind of laser focus on your area and your company, and then you might audit other competitor products. And if it's within the realm of consumer products, then you might use it on a somewhat regular basis. But here, I get to be in the exec rooms with the leaders. Like I literally got to speak with the CPO of YouTube and the VP of product, and I would not be in those rooms had I just been doing in my normal product manager career role. So I'm able to be exposed to people's product roadmaps, strategy, and have debates and talk about the future of the space. That's crazy. So if I'm a full-time employee anywhere, I'm not sure if they would allow me to have that kind of freedom.
Yeah, I mean, he can't do brand deals with anybody else.
Yeah. So that's tough.
But he's still, I think his X following has probably 10x'd since he joined that role, just because he is the face of Google AI.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I like to see things at the industry level now, maybe like you, because you do so many deep dives on so many different companies and products. It's so cool. I really enjoy that. Yeah. I think it gives me a more unbiased lens towards where the product is and where it isn't and where it should be given the sentiment of the rest of the space. And I almost feel like when I'm in it, I'm just so pro my product that I'm just like, oh, dang it, I'm biased. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have tunnel vision for that space. At
You
least I
do.
did when I was a PM. Yeah.
You do, especially at big tech.
All right. Well, this is all I have to say. I think a lot of you guys, I'm looking at the camera there, especially you guys, may not have checked out Chloe's content. Check out her content. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
I am Chloe She at almost every platform. And it's either Chloe.She, Chloe-She, or Chloe She. I'm sure you will be able to find it. Thank you so much for having me, Akash. It's so nice to finally meet you and chit chat.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find out about the podcast. You can find all the past episodes or learn more about the show at product-growth.com. See you in the next episode.